Poor widow with 7 children inherited only a rusty trailer. But what she found there changed everything. Sarah Johnson held baby Johnny against her chest, while her other 6 children crowded around her in front of the rusty trailer that was all that remained of her husband's inheritance. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the corroded structure barely stood upright on the arid land of Greenfield in the countryside of New York. That's when Richard Johnson, Sarah's brother-in-law, appeared with a folder of documents under his arm and a smile she couldn't decipher. "Sarah, you need to sign these papers today," he said, taking off his sunglasses and looking directly at her. "I found a buyer for this land. 15,000 cash." 15,000? She asked, adjusting little Johnny on her lap. "Richard, this land is 12 acres. That can't be right." "Look around, sister-in-law. What do you see? Dry land, a trailer falling apart, and 7 mouths to feed. Do you think you can support this family alone?" Sarah felt a tightness in her chest. Since Joseph had passed 3 months ago, victim of a sudden illness, she hadn't been able to think straight. The grief was still fresh, and now she needed to make decisions that would affect her children's future. "I need time to think," she replied, watching the children play with the 2 mutts Joseph had adopted. "Time is what you don't have," insisted Richard, tapping the folder against his leg. "The buyer is only keeping the offer until tomorrow. After that, I don't know if you'll get even half that price." The oldest daughter, 16-year-old Amanda Beth, approached carrying 4-year-old Mary Elizabeth on her hip. There was a premature maturity in her eyes that broke Sarah's heart. "Mum, can we talk?" Amanda Beth whispered, looking suspiciously at her uncle. Richard put the papers back in the folder with a brusque gesture. "I'll let you think about it. But remember, Sarah, your children are hungry. And winter is coming." He headed to his car and left, leaving a cloud of dust behind him. Amanda Beth waited for the engine noise to disappear before speaking. "Mom, I overheard him on the phone yesterday. He was talking about water, something about an artesian well on the property." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, sitting on the rusty steps of the trailer. "I'm not sure, but he seemed excited. He told the person on the other end that soon, very soon, he'd be rich. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Sarah felt a chill in her stomach. Joseph always said this land had its secrets, but she never paid much attention. Now, with the suspicion that Richard knew something she didn't, she decided not to sign anything until she discovered the truth. That night, after putting the children to sleep in the cramped trailer, Sarah took a flashlight and decided to explore the place more thoroughly. The space was too small for 8 people, but it would have to do for now. 12-year-old Peter Henry woke up and saw her getting ready to leave. "Where are you going, Mum?" "Just going for a walk, son. I'll be back soon." "Can I come with you?" Sarah hesitated, but decided the company would be welcome. They walked through the property with the weak flashlight beam. The place seemed even more desolate at night. That's when Peter Henry stumbled over something. "Mom, there's something weird here," he said, pointing at the ground. It was a metal lid, half buried, covered by years of dirt and weeds. Sarah cleaned the surface and could make out some worn letters. Johnson Property, 1987. "Do you think it's from Grandpa Joseph Anthony?" asked Peter Henry, referring to Sarah's father-in-law who had passed away 20 years earlier. "Could be," she replied, trying to lift the heavy lid. Together they managed to open what appeared to be a small underground storage space. Inside was a rusty toolbox and some papers protected by plastic. Sarah carefully picked up the documents. Even in the dim flashlight beam, she could see they were property maps and handwritten notes. "Let's take this inside," she said. "I'll examine it more closely tomorrow." The next day, while the children had watered down milk and stale bread for breakfast, Sarah studied the found papers. There was a detailed map of the property with red markings and notes about drinking water reserve and natural spring. Amanda Beth, who had learned to read maps in school, joined her mother. "Look here, Mom," she pointed to a mark on the map. "It says there's a spring right here where we are." "But how is that possible?" Sarah murmured. "It's so dry here." "Grandpa Joseph Anthony noted that the water is 5 meters deep," Amanda Beth read aloud. "He says he tested it, and the quality is exceptional. At that moment, Richard arrived again, this time accompanied by a man in a suit who introduced himself as Dr. Williams. "I hope you've thought it over, Sarah," said Richard. "Dr. Williams here has the money ready." The man in the suit looked around with interest, taking notes in a small notebook. "It's exactly as you described, Richard," said Dr. Williams. "This property has potential for an interesting venture." Sarah felt suspicion growing in her chest. "What kind of venture?" she asked. Dr. Williams exchanged glances with Richard before answering. "Oh, nothing major. Perhaps some small-scale farming. The land is suitable." "For farming?" Sarah pressed. "On such dry land?" "Well, technology allows for many things these days," Dr. Williams replied vaguely. Amanda Beth pulled her mother aside. "Mum, don't sign anything. They know something." Richard noticed the hesitation and changed tactics. "Sarah, be realistic. You don't have money for food, let alone to invest in this property. The children need to study, they need clothes, medicine. What will you do when the little Joseph left runs out?" It was true. The money from Joseph's account had lasted only 2 months, and now Sarah relied on the small pension that barely covered basic expenses. "Give me a few more days," she requested. "I can't," Dr. Williams interrupted. "I have other properties to evaluate. It's today or never." "Then it's never," Sarah replied with a firmness that surprised herself. Dr. Williams closed his notebook irritably. "You're making a mistake, Ma'am. This property isn't worth half what we're offering." After the 2 men left, Sarah gathered her older children for a serious talk. "Kids, we're going to go through some hard times, but I have a feeling this property is worth more than it appears. We need to investigate." Luke, 10 years old, raised his hand as if in school. "Mum, what if we tried digging where the map says there's water?" "With what tool?" asked Gabriel, 8 years old. "We don't even have a proper shovel." "There were some tools in the box we found yesterday," Peter Henry reminded them. Sarah smiled for the first time in weeks. Her children were willing to fight. "All right, let's try. But first, I need to understand these documents better." She spent the rest of the day studying her father-in-law's papers. There were letters exchanged with government agencies about groundwater exploitation rights, technical reports from the 1980s, and even old photographs of the property when it had abundant vegetation. In one of the letters, her father-in-law mentioned that he had registered the spring's ownership at the county office, securing exclusive rights to the water. It was valuable information that explained why Richard was so eager to buy the land. That night, Sarah could barely sleep. For the first time since Joseph had passed away, she felt a spark of hope. The next day she woke up determined. She took the rusty tools and started digging at the spot marked on the map, with the help of her older children. "Mum, are you sure it's here?" asked Amanda Beth after 2 hours of work. "It's where Grandpa marked," Sarah replied, wiping the sweat from her forehead. Luke, always observant, noticed the soil was changing color. "Look, the dirt is darker here." And indeed it was. The more they dug, the damper the earth became. Suddenly Peter Henry shouted, "Mom, water is springing up!" A small trickle of crystal-clear water began to emerge from the hole they had dug. The children shouted with joy, and even the dogs barked excitedly. Sarah knelt beside the small spring and took a sip. The water was pure and fresh, completely different from the tap water that sporadically reached the area. "We did it!" yelled Gabriel. "We found Grandpa's water!" But the joy was short-lived. Richard appeared again, this time accompanied not only by Dr. Williams, but also by 2 other men in suits. "What are you doing?" he asked, seeing the hole and the water springing up. "Finding our water," Sarah answered, positioning herself between her brother-in-law and her children. Dr. Williams approached the spring with gleaming eyes. "Interesting," he murmured, making more notes. One of the men with Dr. Williams whispered something in his ear. "Sarah," Dr. Williams said with a fake smile, "now that you've found this little water source, our offer has changed. We can pay 25,000 Rs. 25,000. Richard seemed surprised. "But you said that?" Dr. Williams gave him a stern look that made him fall silent. Sarah realized she was on the right track. "It's not for sale," she said firmly. "Sarah, be reasonable," Richard tried one last time. "You have no idea what you're doing. Exploiting groundwater requires permits, equipment, money that you don't have. Then why do you want to buy it so badly?" Dr. Williams and Richard exchanged uncomfortable glances. "Because we are good people who want to help a widow in need," Dr. Williams replied, but his tone didn't sound convincing. That night, after the men had left clearly displeased, Sarah decided to seek help. She knew she couldn't face this situation alone. The nearest neighbor was Ms. Grace, a 70-year-old lady who lived 2 kilometers away. Sarah left Amanda Beth in charge of the younger siblings and walked there. "Ms. Grace, did you know my father-in-law, Joseph Anthony?" "Of course, my dear. He was a good man, always said that land had its hidden treasures." "Treasures?" Ms. Grace invited Sarah inside and made some coffee. "Your father-in-law discovered that spring in the 1980s. At that time, the whole region suffered from water shortages, but he never wanted to exploit it commercially. He said the water was a gift from God that should be preserved for his children and grandchildren. Do you know if he registered the water rights?" Yes. He went to the notary several times. He was afraid someone might try to take the land because of the water." Ms. Grace stood up and went to an old cabinet. "I have here a copy of a document he gave me to keep. He said that if anything happened to him, I should give it to the family." She handed Sarah a yellowed envelope. "Why didn't you ever give it to us before?" "Because your Joseph hadn't passed away yet when I received this, and afterward, with all the rush of the funeral, I ended up forgetting." Sarah opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a property registration certificate for underground water exploitation rights, dated 1983, and a letter written by Joseph Anthony himself. "To my daughter-in-law Sarah and my dear grandchildren," the letter said. "If you're reading this, it means I've passed on. This land was the work of a lifetime. The water that springs from it is pure and valuable. Don't let anyone steal from you what is rightfully yours. Trust Ms. Grace and the lawyer Mr. Thompson from town. They know the truth about this place. With all my love, Joseph Anthony Johnson." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. "Is Mr. Thompson still alive?" she asked. "Yes, my dear. He has an office on the town's main street. He's a trustworthy man." Sarah thanked Ms. Grace and returned home with a lighter heart. For the first time, she felt she had a direction to follow. The next day, she woke up early and dressed in the best clothes she had. She left the children in Amanda Beth's care and took the bus to town. Mr. Thompson's office was simple but organized. The lawyer, a man with white hair and thick glasses, greeted her with a warm smile. "You must be Joseph Anthony's daughter-in-law," he said, before she could introduce herself. "He spoke of you often." "You knew my father-in-law?" "I knew him well. He came to me several times over the years to ensure all the land documents were in order. He was a cautious man." Mr. Thompson opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. "I have all the original documents here. Your father-in-law asked me to give them to the family if anything happened to him." Sarah showed the papers she had found on the land and the letter that Ms. Grace had kept. "Ms. Sarah," Mr. Thompson said after examining everything, "you are the legal owner of one of the purest water springs in the region. According to the reports I commissioned at the time, the water quality exceeds international standards for mineral water. Does that mean? It means you have a valuable source of income in your hands. With the proper documents, you can commercially exploit this water or sell the exploitation rights for a considerable amount." "How considerable?" Mr. Thompson consulted some notes. "Based on current mineral water market values, I'm talking about at least 200,000 rials just for the exploitation rights, perhaps more." Sarah almost fainted. 200,000 rials was more money than she had ever seen in her entire life. "But I need to warn you about something important," the lawyer continued. "Your brother-in-law Richard was here last week asking questions about the land. He said you wanted to sell and asked for information about the documents." "He did what?" "I didn't say anything, of course, but he insisted a lot, even offered money for the information." Sarah felt anger rising. "Mr. Thompson, I need to protect my family and my rights. What do you advise?" "First, let's register all these documents again to ensure they're up to date. Second, I'll send an official notification to your brother-in-law informing him that any attempt to negotiate the land without your authorization is a crime. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Sarah left the lawyer's office with a feeling of relief and hope that she hadn't felt in months. For the first time since Joseph had passed away, she saw a possible future for her family. On the way back, she stopped at the pharmacy to buy vitamins for baby Johnny, who had lost weight in recent weeks. It was a luxury she couldn't afford before, but now she knew better days were coming. When she got home, she found Amanda Beth in a panic. "Mom!" "It's so good you're back, Mom. Uncle Richard was here with a man from the city hall. They said we're living on the land illegally." "What do you mean illegally?" Peter Henry approached, carrying little Mary Elizabeth. "They brought papers saying we have to leave here in 48 hours. Sarah picked up the documents they had left. It was an official notice claiming the land didn't have a housing permit and that the family's presence constituted an irregular occupation. "This doesn't make any sense," murmured Sarah. "Your father lived here his whole life." She grabbed the phone and called Mr. Thompson. "Doctor, they're trying to evict us from the land." "Calm down, Dr. Sarah. This is an intimidation attempt. Your husband had all the documents in order. I'll contest this notice first thing tomorrow." "But what if they come back to force us out?" "They can't. I'll go to the land myself later today with documentation that will put an end to this nonsense." Mr. Thompson arrived in the late afternoon, accompanied by a representative from the Property Registry Office. Together they confirmed that all the family's documents were in order and that the notice had been issued based on false information. Who provided the information for this notice? Sarah wanted to know. The registry office representative consulted his papers. According to this, it was a certain Richard Johnson, who identified himself as the property owner. Sarah felt anger boiling in her veins. He identified himself as the owner? "Yes, ma'am, and he brought documents that appeared authentic." Mr. Thompson examined the papers. "These documents are forgeries. I'll file a legal complaint against your brother-in-law immediately." That night, Sarah gathered her children and explained the situation. "Kids, you need to understand that there are people who want to take from us what is rightfully ours, but we won't let that happen." Amanda Beth, always mature for her age, asked, "What are we going to do, Mom?" "We're going to fight and we're going to win." The next morning, Sarah woke up to the sound of machinery. She looked through the trailer window and saw a truck with drilling equipment parked outside the property fence. She ran out and found Richard directing the workers. "What's going on here?" she shouted. "Sarah, you missed your chance," Richard replied, without even looking at her. "Now we're going to handle this another way." "You can't enter my property." "Actually, we can," said Dr. Williams, appearing from behind the truck. "I have here a court order authorizing drilling for soil analysis." Sarah grabbed the paper and read it quickly. It looked official, but she was suspicious. "I'm calling my lawyer." "Call whoever you want." Dr. Williams laughed. "The order is valid." Sarah ran inside the trailer and called Mr. Thompson. "Doctor, they're here with a court order." "What kind of order?" "For soil analysis." "That's impossible. There's no ongoing process that justifies this. I'm coming there right now." While waiting for the lawyer to arrive, Sarah watched the workers preparing the equipment. There was something wrong with the whole situation, but she couldn't pinpoint what. That's when she noticed one of the workers positioning the drill rig right over the spring she and the children had discovered. "Stop!" she shouted. "You're going to destroy our water." "What water?" Richard pretended to be surprised. "There's no water here." "Yes, there is. We found it yesterday." Dr. Williams and Richard exchanged looks. "Sarah, you're imagining things," Dr. Williams said. "The stress of widowhood can cause hallucinations." Sarah was outraged by the condescension, but before she could respond, Mr. Thompson arrived accompanied by 2 court officers. "Stop everything right now," he shouted, showing the documents he was carrying. "This court order is fake." Dr. Williams turned pale. "What do you mean fake?" "I checked with the court. There's no case with this number. You forged this document." The court officers approached Dr. Williams. "Sir, I'll need you to come with us for questioning." Wait, there must be some mistake. The only mistake here is you thinking you could deceive an honest family, Mr. Thompson said firmly. Richard tried to escape, but one of the officers stopped him. You also need to provide explanations about document forgery. Sarah watched the men being taken away with a mixture of relief and sadness. Richard was Joseph's brother, but he had chosen greed over family. Mr. Thompson approached her. Dr. Sarah, they won't bother you anymore, but I suggest we speed up the process of regularizing the water extraction. People like them might try other approaches. What do you suggest? There's a reputable company in New York that works with mineral water extraction. We can negotiate a partnership where they invest in the infrastructure and you get a percentage of the profits. Is this safe? Much safer than trying to do everything alone. And you'll maintain ownership of the land and the spring. Sarah looked toward the trailer where her children waited, trusting her decisions. Let's move forward, Doctor. In the following weeks, Mr. Thompson handled all the necessary documentation. The New York company sent technicians who confirmed the exceptional quality of the water and its steady flow. The contract was signed on a sunny Thursday. Sarah received an advance of $50,000 and would receive 15% of all profits from water sales. With the first money, she managed to buy new clothes for the children, medicine for the baby, and enough food for an entire month. "Mom, are we going to be rich?" asked Gabriel, trying on his new shirt. "We're going to be dignified, my son," Sarah replied, "and that's much more important." Mr. Thompson had suggested she use part of the money to renovate the trailer and turn it into a proper home for the family. But Sarah had other plans. "Doctor, I want to build a new house, small but new, and I want to keep the trailer as it is, so we never forget where we came from." The construction of the new house took 4 months. During this time, Sarah was personally involved in every detail, from choosing the bricks to the color of the walls. Amanda Beth became her main helper, showing a natural talent for organization that surprised her mother. "Did you know Amanda has a knack for management?" the construction foreman commented one day. "She controls everything, materials, schedules, expenses. She's a little businesswoman." Sarah smiled with pride. Adversity had matured her daughter, but hadn't stolen her dreams. The mineral water company began operating on the property 6 months after signing the contract. They installed modern equipment that extracted water without damaging the spring and built a small bottling plant. The first batch of Johnson's Crystal Water reached regional markets in elegant glass bottles, with the smiling faces of the whole family printed on the label. "Look, Mom," shouted Luke, running with a bottle in his hand. "Our water is in the market." Sarah held the bottle and felt an indescribable emotion. There was the result of months of struggle, persistence, and faith. That night, she gathered her children in the new house for a special conversation. "Kids, you know our life has changed a lot in recent months, but I want you to understand that the most important thing isn't the money we're making." "What is it then, Mum?" asked Peter Henry. "It's the fact that you've learned that it's worth fighting for what's right, that we shouldn't give up when things get tough. And a united family can overcome any obstacle." Amanda Beth, always sharp, asked a question Sarah didn't expect. "Mom, do you miss Dad?" Sarah felt her eyes filling with tears, but they were different from the ones she had shed in the first months. "I miss him very much, my daughter. But I'm sure he's proud of you, and proud of me too." "How do you know?" "Because he always said that the greatest legacy he could leave for you wouldn't be money, but strength of character. And you've shown you have that in abundance." Baby Johnny, now over a year old, took his first steps that same night, as if wanting to symbolize that the family was truly walking toward a better future. The following months brought gradual prosperity. The mineral water sales exceeded all expectations, and Sarah began receiving offers to expand the business. A supermarket chain from New York wanted exclusivity in distribution. A cosmetics company was interested in using the water in their products. Even an international distributor made a tempting offer. "Dr. Sarah," said Mr. Thompson during one of his monthly visits, "you have several interesting options on the table. What do you plan to do?" "I want to grow, but without rushing, and I want my children to be part of all important decisions. They're still too young to understand business, maybe, but they understand family. And this is a family business. Amanda Beth, who was now in her sophomore year at a private school in the city, had developed a real interest in business administration. "Mom, I researched mineral water franchises. We could license our brand to other producers." "Explain that further." "It's like this. Other people with good water springs could use our brand and our production system. We'd get a percentage of everything they sell." Sarah was impressed with her daughter's maturity. "And you think that would be good for us?" "I think it would be a way to grow without losing control of what's ours." Mr. Thompson, who was following the conversation, smiled. "Your daughter is right. It's a smart strategy for expansion." Sarah decided to study the proposal calmly. After all, there was no more hurry. They had financial security, a comfortable home, and more importantly, they had hope for the future. A year and a half after discovering the spring, the Johnson family had become a reference in the region. Johnson's Crystal Water was sold in 3 states, and Sarah had been invited to speak at events about women's entrepreneurship. "I never imagined I'd be a speaker," she commented to Ms. Grace during one of her weekly visits to the neighbor. "I imagined," replied the elderly lady, "from the first day when I saw you fighting for your children, I knew you were special. You gave me strength when I needed it most. I just showed you what you already had inside." The conversation was interrupted by Peter Henry, who came running. "Mom, a registered letter arrived for you." Sarah opened the correspondence and was surprised. It was a formal proposal from a university in New York for her to participate in a study about successful small family businesses. "They want me to tell our story to business students," she explained to Ms. Grace. "And are you going to accept?" "I think so. Maybe our experience can help other families." The lecture at the university took place on a rainy Thursday. Sarah was nervous, but Amanda Beth accompanied her for moral support. "Mom, you'll do well. Our story is inspiring." The room was packed with over 200 students. Sarah began by recounting the day she inherited the rusty trailer and ended by explaining how the family had built a thriving business while keeping their core values. During the Q&A session, a student asked, "Ms. Sarah, what was the toughest moment in this whole journey?" Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "It was when I realized that people from our own family were trying to harm us. That affected me more than the poverty or the practical challenges. How did you handle that? I learned that we can't always count on those we expect to, but I also discovered that kindness can be found in unexpected places. Ms. Grace, our neighbor, Mr. Thompson, our lawyer, even strangers in our community helped us when we needed it." Another student raised her hand. "Do you plan to expand the business further?" "Yes, but always remembering where we came from. I want my children to grow up knowing that success isn't just measured by how much money you have, but by the dignity with which you live and the good you do for others." After the talk, several students came up to speak with her individually. One young woman in particular caught Sarah's attention. "Miss Sarah, my name is Caitlin. I'm also from a humble background, and sometimes I feel like I don't belong here at the university. Your story gave me hope. My dear, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Never let anyone make you believe you don't deserve the opportunities you've earned." On the way back home, Amanda Beth commented, "Mom, I want to study business when I finish high school." "Are you sure?" "I am. I want to help expand our business and maybe, in the future, help other families like that girl, Caitlin." Sarah smiled, knowing she had raised not just a successful daughter, but a person with purpose. 2 years after discovering the spring, the company Johnson Family Waters had become a small corporation with 40 employees and national distribution. Sarah had not only built a new home for the family, but also a small office on the property and a community school for the local children. "Why a school, Mum?" asked Gabriel, now 10 years old and noticeably more mature. "Because education is the one thing no one can take away from you. And because I remember how hard it was to get to the town school when we were poor. The community school served 40 local children and offered not only regular classes, but also courses in entrepreneurship and environmental education." Amanda Beth, now 18, had been accepted to 3 different universities to study business. She chose to stay in the area, studying at a nearby university, so she could continue helping with the family business. "Mom, I don't want to go far away right now," she explained her decision. "Our company is growing, and I want to be part of it." "Are you sure it's not because you're afraid to leave home?" "I'm sure. It's out of love for what we're building together." Peter Henry, at 14, had developed an interest in environmental engineering and spent much of his free time studying ways to make water production more sustainable. "Mom, I calculated that we could reduce the factory's energy consumption by 30% if we install solar panels." He presented his research during a family dinner. "And how much would that installation cost?" asked Sarah, always practical. "It would be expensive at first, but it would pay for itself in 2 years, and it would improve our image as an environmentally responsible company." Sarah was impressed with her son's financial analysis. "We'll study this proposal seriously." Luke, at 12, had discovered a talent for sales and marketing. He created small advertising campaigns for the school and dreamed of working on expanding the family brand. "Mum, I think we should have a line of flavored water," he suggested, "with natural fruit flavors from the region." "And who would produce these fruits?" asked Amanda Beth. "The local small farmers. We'd buy from them, help the local economy, and have unique products." Sarah realized that each of her children was developing skills that would complement the family business. Gabriel, at 10 years old, showed interest in technology and wanted to create a better website for the company. Mary Elizabeth, now 6, was the most artistic in the family and created drawings that Sarah used in promotional materials. Little Johnny, 2.5 years old, was still too young to show specific interests, but he was the joy of the family and appeared in all the company photos. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. On a Saturday afternoon, 3 years after discovering the spring, Sarah was organizing the company files when she found the old photos they had taken on the first day in front of the rusty trailer. She called all the children to see. "Look how we were 3 years ago," she said, showing the photographs. The children laughed when they saw how thin they were and wearing worn-out clothes. "We looked sad," commented Mary Elizabeth. "Not sad, my dear, tired. But we never lost hope." Amanda Beth, always thoughtful, picked up one of the photos. "Mum, do you remember what you were thinking that day?" "I do. I was thinking that I needed to be strong for you all, that I couldn't give up because you depended on me." "And now? What do you think?" Sarah looked out the window of the new house, where she could see the factory operating, the employees working, and the original trailer preserved as a memorial. "Now I think you don't just depend on me. We depend on each other. We're a team." Peter Henry made an observation that deeply touched Sarah. "Mum, I think Dad knew this was going to happen." "Why do you think that?" "Because he chose to live on this land, even though he knew there was valuable water here. He could have sold it and bought a house in the city, but he didn't sell. He saved it for us." Sarah felt a deep emotion. Her son had understood something she herself was just beginning to understand. Joseph hadn't just left a piece of land with water. He had left an opportunity for the family to grow together, facing challenges and building something together. "Do you know that our company is receiving buyout offers?" she told the children. "What kind of offers?" asked Amanda Beth. "A multinational offered 5 million Rs for everything. The brand, the spring, the distribution contracts." The children were silent for a moment. "5 million is a lot of money," said Luke finally. "It is. With that money, you could study at the best universities in the world, travel, buy anything you wanted. But," Amanda Beth sensed there was something more. "But it would also mean that other people would control our water, our brand, our legacy." "What do you want to do?" asked Peter Henry. "I want you all to decide. After all, this business belongs to the whole family." They talked for hours that afternoon. Each child expressed their opinion, their doubts, their dreams. In the end, they reached a unanimous decision. They wouldn't sell the company. "But we'll accept minority investors," proposed Amanda Beth, "people who can help us grow without losing control. And we'll use part of the profits to create a foundation," suggested Peter Henry, "to help other families who are going through hardships like we did. Sarah felt immense pride in her children. They had matured not only financially, but emotionally and socially. The decision to create the Joseph Anthony Johnson Foundation was announced in a small ceremony at the community school they had built. This foundation will help widows with small children find ways to earn a decent living, Sarah explained to the guests. It will offer microloans for small businesses and professional training courses. Ms. Grace, now 73 years old, was the honorary president of the foundation. "I always knew you would do great things," she said in her inauguration speech, "but you have exceeded even my most optimistic expectations." Mr. Thompson, who had become much more than a lawyer to the family, was appointed legal advisor of the foundation. "Dr. Sarah, it's a pleasure to see how justice sometimes works," he commented. "Good people being rewarded for their perseverance and kindness." The foundation's first project was to help a refugee family that had arrived in the region. The father had lost his life in a work accident, leaving his wife with 5 small children. "It's like we're looking at ourselves 4 years ago," Amanda Beth commented while organizing donations for the family. "That's exactly why we need to help," Sarah replied. "We know exactly how they feel." The company continued to grow sustainably. 3 regional distribution centers were opened, creating jobs for over 100 people in the community. Johnson's Crystal Water earned international certifications for quality and sustainability. The brand became synonymous with social responsibility and excellence. Amanda Beth graduated in business administration as the top student in her class. Her thesis on sustainable family entrepreneurship was nationally awarded and turned into a book. "Mum, I was offered a job at a multinational company," she shared during a company meeting. "And what did you say?" "That I already have the best job in the world, working with my family to build something that has meaning." Peter Henry, at 17, had developed 3 technological innovations for the company that resulted in international patents. "Mom, I want to study engineering abroad," he announced. "But I want to come back to apply what I learn here." "You have my full support," Sarah replied. "Knowledge is never too much." Luke, at 15, had created a social media marketing campaign that tripled the company's online sales. "Mum, people my age want products with purpose," he explained his strategies. "Our story of overcoming is what attracts young people the most." Gabriel, at 13, had developed a smartphone app that allowed customers to track the water's origin from the spring to the bottle. "People want transparency," he explained. "They want to know exactly what they're buying and where it comes from." Mary Elizabeth, at 9, had become the Little brand ambassador. Her videos explaining the importance of pure water had millions of views online. Johnny, at 5, was simply the charismatic star of all the family's advertising campaigns. 5 years after discovering the spring, the Johnson family was featured on the cover of the country's most important national business magazine. The article was titled, "The Miracle of the Waters: How a Humble Family Built an Empire While Maintaining Moral Values." "Can you believe our picture is on a magazine cover?" Mary Elizabeth shouted, running through the house with the magazine in her hand. Sarah looked at the cover photo. They were all smiling in front of the crystal-clear spring, with the factory in the background and the preserved trailer beside it. "It's not just about being in the magazine," she explained to her children. "It's about proving that it's possible to succeed in life without losing your humanity." The magazine brought proposals from all over the country. Investors, franchisees, distributors, everyone wanted to partner with the Johnson family. "Mom, I think it's time to truly expand nationally," suggested Amanda Beth during a family meeting. "Do you feel ready for that?" "We do," replied Peter Henry, "but on our terms." The Johnson family's conditions for any partnership were clear: respect for the environment, social responsibility, unquestionable quality, and local community profit sharing. "Many companies won't accept these terms," warned Mr. Thompson. "Then they're not the right companies for us," responded Sarah. The family philosophy was clear: grow, yes, but never at the expense of the values that had brought them this far. 1 year later, they had selected 5 partners who shared the same vision. Johnson Family Waters was present in 10 Brazilian states. Each new factory prioritized hiring people from the local community, and invested part of the profits in social projects in the region. "We're creating a business model that can be replicated," observed Amanda Beth. "It's not just about our family. It's about showing there's a different way to run companies." The expansion brought unexpected challenges. Competitors tried to copy not only the product, but also the family's story. "Mum, there's a company in Goiás pretending to be our branch," reported Luke, always attentive to social media. "And there's another one in Rio Grande do Sul using a story very similar to ours," added Gabriel. "What should we do?" asked Peter Henry. Sarah thought for a moment. "We'll sue those using our brand illegally, but the companies that only copied our story, maybe we should help them create their own authentic stories." "How so?" Amanda Beth didn't understand. "If they want to copy our social responsibility model, why not teach them the right way to do it? That way, everyone wins." The idea of creating consulting services for other family businesses became a new branch of the Johnson Enterprises. They began offering courses and mentorship for entrepreneurs wanting to build sustainable businesses. "It's funny," commented Ms. Grace during one of her weekly visits to Sarah. "You found water in the ground and now you're spreading hope across the country." "Do you think we've grown too much?" Sarah asked, sometimes worried they were losing the family essence of the business. "No, my dear. You've just discovered that your water wasn't the only treasure hidden in this land. What else was hidden? Your generous hearts, the ability to do good, the strength of character that overcomes any obstacle." That night, Sarah reflected on Ms. Grace's words. Her family had truly changed a lot since the difficult days in the rusty trailer. Amanda Beth, at 21, was a respected executive giving international talks on social entrepreneurship. Peter Henry, at 19, and studying engineering at a European university, sent weekly technological innovations that he implemented in the company during his vacations. Luke, at 17, had created the first advertising agency specializing in social impact companies in the interior of New York. Gabriel, at 15, developed a water purification system being studied by universities in 3 countries. Mary Elizabeth, at 11, was the host of a children's program about sustainability airing on a national educational TV channel. Johnny, at 7, even though so young, already showed natural leadership by organizing the children at the community school. But the most important thing was that they remained a close-knit family, having dinner together every night and making important decisions collectively. "Mom," said Amanda Beth during one of these family meetings, "I think it's time we wrote our story." "What do you mean?" "A book, telling our journey from the rusty trailer to where we are today. It could inspire other families going through hard times." "And who would write this book?" "All of us. Each would tell their part of the story. It would be a book truly written by the entire family." The idea excited everyone. Over the following months, they took turns writing chapters of the book, Waters of Hope, the true story of a family that transformed adversity into abundance. The book was launched 2 years later in a ceremony at the very water spring. Over 1,000 people attended the event, including business people, students, struggling families, and local authorities. "This book isn't about us," said Sarah Johnson in her launch speech. "It's about all the families who fight every day to give their children a decent life. It's about proving that it doesn't matter where you come from, but where you're going." The book became a national bestseller and was translated into 12 languages. The royalties were entirely allocated to the Joseph Anthony Johnson Foundation. With the book's success came invitations to television shows, documentaries, and even proposals for a movie about the family's story. "Would you agree to make a film about our story?" asked a Hollywood producer who had become interested in the project. "It depends," replied Amanda Beth. "What would the film's purpose be?" "Entertainment, of course. An inspiring story of overcoming adversity." "That's not enough," said Peter Henry. "The film would need to have a clear social purpose." "What do you mean?" "Like using the box office to build artesian wells in needy communities," suggested Luke. "Or funding scholarships for young entrepreneurs. Or creating a fund to help widows with young children," added Gabriel. The producer was surprised by the conditions, but eventually agreed. The film Waters of Hope was shot on the family's own property, with Brazilian actors and national production. "It's strange to see our story being portrayed by actors," commented Mary Elizabeth during the filming. "It's strange, but it's necessary," replied Sarah. "If our story can inspire just one family not to give up, it will have been worth it." The film was released at international festivals and won Best Screenplay awards in 3 different countries. More important than the awards, it generated enough funds to build 100 artesian wells in impoverished rural communities. 7 years after discovering the spring, the Johnson family had become a case study in business schools worldwide. Sarah, now 45 years old, was considered one of the country's most influential social entrepreneurs, but she still made a point of personally participating in the company's daily operations. "Why don't you hire a CEO?" asked Mr. Thompson. "You could focus solely on strategic aspects." "Because I don't want to lose touch with reality," she would answer. "The day I stop knowing our employees' names, stop knowing the families in our community, is the day our company will start losing its soul." Amanda Beth had become the company's expansion director, responsible for evaluating all growth opportunities. "Mum, we've received a proposal to open operations abroad," she shared during a meeting. "Where?" "Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay to start. And do you think we're ready?" "I think the world needs our model, but we need to make sure we can maintain our values in other countries." International expansion became a reality 2 years later. The first factory outside Brazil was inaugurated in Chile, in a ceremony attended by the entire family. "Dad would be proud to see how far we've come," said Peter Henry, as he watched the opening ceremony. "He is watching," replied Sarah. "And he's proud not only of the business success, but mainly of the kind of people you've become." The company's philosophy remained unchanged even with international expansion. Hire locally, invest in the community, protect the environment, and maintain total transparency. "It's harder to keep these standards in other countries," admitted Amanda Beth after the first year of operations abroad. "Hard, but not impossible," replied Peter Henry, who had completed his engineering degree and returned to work in the company. "We just need to find partners who share our values." Luke, now a marketing graduate, had created advertising campaigns that connected the Johnson brand to social causes in every country where they operated. "In Chile, we support rural schools. In Argentina, child nutrition programs. In Uruguay, small producer cooperatives," he explained the strategy. Gabriel, studying computer science, developed an app that allowed consumers to choose which social cause they wanted to support with their purchases. Each bottle sold allocates 10 cents to the cause chosen by the consumer. He demonstrated how the app worked. This creates engagement and personalization. Mary Elizabeth, at 13, had become a recognized environmental activist. Her YouTube channel on sustainability had 2 million followers. "Mum, I want to use our platform to talk about climate change," she proposed. "It's an important topic, but controversial." "Exactly why we need to talk about it. If we don't take care of the planet, there won't be pure water for anyone." Johnny, at 9 years old, showed an early interest in social issues. He had organized a campaign at school to collect toys for underprivileged children. "Mommy, why are there children who don't have toys?" he asked one day. "Because not all families have the luck we have, my son. Then we have to share our luck." The innocence and generosity of the youngest deeply touched Sarah. He was growing up with a natural social awareness that made her proud. 10 years after discovering the spring, the family decided to create a memorial at the place where it all began. The rusty trailer was restored and turned into a small museum that told the family's story and welcomed visitors from all over the country. "It's important that people see where we came from," Sarah explained to her children, "to understand that there's no success without struggle and that the true victory lies in staying humble even after winning." The memorial was inaugurated in a simple but moving ceremony. Ms. Grace, now 83 years old, cut the symbolic ribbon. "I've followed this entire journey," she said in her speech. "I saw a broken family become a symbol of hope. But what makes me proudest is that they never forgot where they came from." Mr. Thompson, retired but still an advisor to the family, spoke about the legal aspects of the journey. "This family has proven that it's possible to grow while respecting the laws, paying taxes correctly, and treating everyone with dignity. They are proof that honesty pays off. The memorial received, on average, 500 visitors per month. Many were business people who wanted to understand the family's business model. Others were struggling families seeking inspiration. "Mom, there's a refugee family that wants to visit the memorial," Amanda Beth reported. "They lost everything in the war and are trying to restart their lives in Brazil." "Of course they can visit. And we will offer more than just a visit. Let's see how we can help them." The Syrian refugee family had arrived in Brazil just a few months earlier. The father was an engineer, the mother a teacher, and they had 3 young children. "We heard your story on television," the father said through a translator. "It gave us hope that it's possible to rebuild a life even when we've lost everything." Sarah Johnson was moved by the account and immediately offered jobs to both of them in the company. "We need an engineer for our quality department," she told the father, "and we're planning to open a bilingual school in the community. Your wife could help us." 6 months later, the Syrian family was fully integrated into the community. The engineer had implemented improvements in the production process that increased efficiency by 20%. "It's amazing how every person who comes into our life brings something valuable," commented Peter Henry. "They came asking for help and ended up helping us too." The story of the Syrian family's integration became a documentary and won awards at human rights festivals. "Our company is becoming much more than a business," observed Luke. "It's becoming a movement." "A movement of what?" asked Sarah Johnson. "A movement that proves conscious capitalism works, that it's possible to make money while doing good." Luke's observation was accurate. The company had attracted the attention of economists and sociologists studying alternative models of economic development. An American university created an entire course based on the Johnson model of social entrepreneurship. "Professor, do you really believe all companies can operate this way?" asked a student during a video conference with Sarah Johnson. "I believe all companies should operate this way," she replied. "Profit doesn't have to be the enemy of social well-being. On the contrary, companies that care for people and the planet tend to be more prosperous in the long run." The lecture sparked intense debate among the students. Some argued that the Johnson model only worked because they had been lucky to find a valuable natural resource. "What if there had been no water on the land?" asked a student. "Would the story be different?" Sarah Johnson thought carefully before answering. "Perhaps, but I believe we would have found another way to thrive. The secret wasn't in the water, but in our determination not to give up and in our unity as a family." "How can you be so sure?" "Because before we discovered the water, we were already fighting. We were already looking for solutions. The water was a blessing, but the right attitude came first." Sarah Johnson's response became one of the most shared quotes about entrepreneurship on social media. 15 years after discovering the spring, the company Johnson Family Waters operated in 8 countries and directly employed over 5,000 people. The Joseph Anthony Johnson Foundation had helped more than 10,000 families find dignified ways to make a living. The memorial on the original land received over 2,000 visitors per month and had become an official tourist attraction in the region. Sarah Johnson, at 50 years old, was internationally recognized as a pioneer of social entrepreneurship, but still lived in the simple house she had built next to the spring. "Mom, have you ever thought about moving to a bigger house?" asked Johnny, now a 14-year-old teenager. "What for? This house has everything we need, and more importantly, it has stories." Amanda Beth, at 26, had married a young environmental engineer and was expecting her first child. "Mom, I want my child to grow up hearing our family's story," she said, stroking her belly. "I want him to know he comes from fighters." Peter Henry, at 24, had completed his master's degree in sustainable engineering and was considered one of the country's most promising young inventors. "Mom, I developed a system that can detect underground water springs using drones," he presented his latest creation. "I want to use this to help underprivileged communities find water." Luke, at 22, had created the first marketing agency in Latin America specialized in social causes. "Mom, my agency will only work with companies that prove positive social impact," he explained his business plan. "No more empty advertising." Gabriel, at 20, was studying artificial intelligence and developing systems to optimize water resources in rural communities. "Mom, imagine if we can bring drinking water to places where it has never reached," he dreamed big. "Our technology can change lives." Mary Elizabeth, at 18, had been accepted into 5 universities to study environmental journalism. "Mom, I want to use communication to raise awareness about sustainability," she defined her calling. "Our generation needs to save the planet." Johnny, at 14, already showed natural leadership and interest in public policies. "Mom, when I grow up, I want to be mayor to implement clean water policies for everyone," he declared his ambitions. Sarah looked at her children and felt immense pride. Each had found their own way to make a difference in the world, but all kept family values as their foundation. "You know our story has become a movie, a book, a documentary, a case study," she said during a family dinner. "But what makes me proudest isn't the fame. It's seeing the kind of people you've become." "We learned from you, Mom," said Amanda Beth. "No. We learned together. It was a team effort from day one." That night, Sarah went to the water spring as she did every night before bed. It was her moment of reflection and gratitude. She looked at the preserved trailer, the house where they lived, the factory running, the lit community school. 15 years earlier, she was there with 7 children, no money, no prospects, surrounded only by hope and determination. Today, that same place was a symbol that it's possible to transform adversity into abundance without losing humanity. She remembered the words Joseph used to say, "Sarah, our greatest wealth isn't in what we have, but in who we are." She finally understood the real meaning of that phrase. The true legacy Joseph had left wasn't the land, not even the water spring. It was the strength of character, the ability to dream big while keeping feet on the ground, and the conviction that a united family can overcome any obstacle. "Thank you, my love," she whispered to the stars, "for everything you planted in us." A gentle breeze rustled the trees around the spring, as if Joseph were there, smiling proudly at the extraordinary family his Sarah had raised. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of overcoming and family unity. Leave your comment with sincere words about which moment moved you the most. Do you believe that determination and solid values can truly transform any situation? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us on this emotional journey. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories.